I have a message to you men, which is telling your story is the easier path to the same destination. It's up to you if you're willing, able to be authentic, but you're doing something meaningful and purposeful. And the better you get at talking about it, the easier the path will be for you.
Today's conversation with Dan went somewhere I didn't expect, which is usually when the good stuff happens in a conversation, and in a lot of ways why I do this podcast. Dan, as you'll see in the conversation, is the founder of BizHack and the creator of a story-driven growth. And he came on to talk about how founders can use their story to grow their business, how they can close more deals doing it, they can build trust, create something their customers and employees will actually understand using storytelling. And I'll be honest, I wasn't too sure about this, and I pushed back. Because when Dan first started talking about storytelling, my gut reaction was that, as you'll see in the podcast, it sounded soft, honestly, maybe a little feminine. Not because I had thought all the way through it, but because honestly, that's where my mind went. I think a lot of men probably hear that the same way. To Dan's credit, and this is what good conversations are made from, he leaned into it. What came out of that pushback was a much better conversation, I think, than if I had just nodded along and let him explain his framework. We talked about whether the story is really just marketing, whether entrepreneurs actually need to be passionate about the work that they do, and whether you really need to care about having a polished brand story, or if he was simply trying to feed his family and build a better life, the person that owns all of these things. And that's where the conversation got personal for me, personal in a good way. Everybody knows I'm happy to wear my emotions on my sleeve, and all of the things I have done wrong, as I have said, I have made fortunes and I have also lost them. And it is in those lost fortunes, I think, that a lot of the value of my advice comes from. That is what made this episode worth having for sure. It was not a clean conversation. I don't want to make it more than it was. And by clean conversation, that is, I think, a testament to both of us and a compliment. So if you're an entrepreneur who hears words like story or branding or purpose and immediately wants to roll your eyes just like I do, this one is probably for you. Let's talk about storytelling, right? And I think, I'll just full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Donald Miller when it comes to storytelling. And that's where I kind of got my feet wet with storytelling. I didn't know anything about it. And so to me, storytelling, it's funny, and as we were having that conversation a few minutes ago, feels very feminine. And so I in thinking about it, I had this pushback against storytelling. I don't know why that is. I can't tell you why. That's my reaction. And I think probably that might be a lot of men's reactions. So let's kind of start from that context, since we talk to a lot of men here on this podcast, and talk about storytelling. Let's define it.
Yeah. So first of all, totally, man. Like, a lot of people think story is soft. And I would say some people think of it as feminine. Most people think of it as juvenile. It's like what you do with a kid. And I want to redefine what storytelling means for me and for this conversation. So storytelling is basically telling to every stakeholder in your business, starting with your customers and your employees, why you do what you do and why it matters to you and why it matters to the world. That's what I mean when I say story. I call this your business story, why you do what you do and why it matters. And my thesis is it's not an accident. None of the work we do as entrepreneurs is accidental. There are reasons that you chose the industry you chose, the kind of work that you do, and there are very personal reasons for why that work matters to you, and you're willing to sacrifice so much to do it. And that's what I mean when I say story, and that's what I'd like for us to think about. And I even capitalize business story just to signal that we're not talking about a kid's tale that you would read to your 5-year-old.
And so in that context, storytelling as it pertains to an entrepreneur, how is that different, or what's the connection to marketing? Right? We always think about these things in terms of, how are you marketing yourself? How do you build a brand? How are those, we're talking the same thing, right? Marketing and storytelling is just how you market yourself is via your story. Is that too simple?
It's not too simple, but I do think of it as a misconception. Part of storytelling, part of telling your business story is your brand. and marketing. But it's actually a small part of it. So there are 4 dimensions of business storytelling. And the first is customer acquisition. And that's marketing, which you were talking about, your brand. But there's also sales. And in fact, I think storytelling is more powerful as a sales technique than a marketing technique. When you're in a one-on-one is when storytelling really creates liking and trusting, which is the foundation of business. But look, I mean, a lot of this stands to reason. What about hiring, right? So hiring and internal storytelling is essential because that's how you communicate value and align on values. That's dimension 2, team building, culture. Dimension 3, investing, speaking to the community, like TED Talk, the classic, like thought leadership, that's all storytelling. What about an investor deck? It's you and an idea. That's storytelling, right? We know this, but we just tend to box it into this limited place. And then the 4th dimension, which I hope we get into, because I think there's a lot of men in your audience who are probably isolated and alone. There's a kind of an epidemic of male loneliness right now. And I really want to talk about this because the 4th dimension is a story you tell yourself. All that head trash, all that self-talk. You know, Jerry, you've been up and down the ringer, man. I can imagine over time you've had to really forgive yourself, just like we all do, for the mistakes you made. And like, that's the story you tell yourself. That's a part 2. What I have found that the people who get really clear on why they're doing what they're doing and why it matters, it makes the entrepreneurial journey a lot smoother. And they show up as their best and most fully embodied self for those sales meetings, for those investor meetings, for those team meetings.
So let's bring it down to, let's talk to an entrepreneur. Maybe he's doing $500,000 a year. Maybe he's doing $2 million a year. Maybe he's mowing lawns for a living, or he's got a commercial cleaning business, whatever it is. You know, really that 30 million entrepreneurs that are out there in the United States running these small businesses, they're mostly solopreneurs. With what you're talking about here, when we start talking about investors and things of that nature and having calls and those, most of the, certainly my audience and most entrepreneurs don't live in that world.
No.
So when we talk about, you know, Joe Garbage Man that's out there trying to get his route started, well, the government controls all that's very difficult to do, but use that as an example, trying to get his route started. How is this going to help that Lunch-Pail guy going to work every day as a contractor, you know, helping people remodel their kitchens?
Yeah. So my favorite client, I call them the dirt under the fingernails clients. And so I think you've used a couple examples, but what was the last one you just said? We can just
contractor or an HVAC tech. Perfect. Or a plumber, you know, any of those.
Yeah. Let's just take a plumber because it's easy.
Before we get back to the episode, let me ask you something. Are you tired of being told that ambition is toxic? How about masculinity is a problem? And the answer to every struggle is that you should lower your standards. Well, I am. And that is why I built the Kronos Forge. It's a free community for men who want to get more out of themselves, quite frankly. You want to lose weight, build a business, get a promotion, save your marriage, find a relationship, become a better father or an employee, a better friend, a better businessman. How about get your money right? Or maybe just get around men who refuse to apologize for wanting more, something we have done since the dawn of time. If who I am, if what I have built, how I think, and the way that I see the world resonates with you, then you need to get in this room. Nobody is coming to save us, and that is fine with us. Go to thekronosgroup.org/forge or click the link in the show notes. Come check us out.
All right, you're a plumber. What you are is a dude who knows how to plumb, right? Like you're a technician. 80% of the 30 million small businesses are technicians who are tired of working for somebody else, right? So I'm that, I'm a teacher who runs a training company, and I'm a, storyteller who runs a storytelling consultancy. Like that, most entrepreneurs at the level you're talking about are that, which is they have a deep expertise for a thing and they don't want to work for somebody else. And then they start their business. The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerson talks about like the pie maker who started a bakery business. So you're this plumber, you're starting a business, you know how to do a thing. And then, you have kind of friends and family hire you and your business starts. And usually you kind of come out of the gates pretty fast because your friends and family have plumbing needs. And then over time, you eventually hit a wall which is like, you don't know anybody who has plumbing needs anymore. Now you have to sell to strangers. And then the question becomes, well, how do you sell to strangers? And what I try to make the case for is that if you tell your authentic story about why you're a plumber, why the work matters to you, you can immediately differentiate yourself from all the other plumbers in the world, and you can charge higher prices. And that people who feel connected to you and your story, I mean, ultimately, to be a plumber is a high trust profession, because you're essentially not only are you sitting inside of someone's house, maybe for hours, but you're like, if you screw up as a plumber, you're going to do so much damage. Like, there's nothing worse than water damage. I mean, it's a high trust activity. So how do you build that trust? Right? Especially if you're a newbie and you're just coming out of the gate. And if they don't know you, if you're a stranger, how do you build that trust? And the way human beings build trust is through story. And so you say, like, yeah, hi, my name is Dan. I'm a plumber. I've been a plumber since I was 14 years old. In fact, I used to plumb my grandmother's kitchen, and, I've been doing it ever since. I now have gotten this certification. I've worked for these people, but I love the work because water is, like, if you don't have water in your house isn't habitable. So if you want to have a comfortable house, if you want to, be able to cook, if you want to be able to clean, if you want to be able to raise a family, you need water that is reliable as air. And that's what I do. And that's why I do it. And, my father was a plumber, right? And so I'm actually a second generation, or, my father actually was a handyman, and he taught me. I would go out on the deal, on the road with him when he was doing the handyman work. And one of his, contractors was this plumbing guy, and he took me in as an apprentice. And that's how I learned the craft. You know what I mean? Like when you start to tell that kind of story, you start to break down the barriers of, am I going to invite this stranger into my home? Am I going to allow this stranger to see the most intimate part of my life, which is, underneath my bathroom sink, or underneath you shove all the embarrassing shit in there, right? Like, nobody has a public facing underneath the bathroom sink. That's where all your embarrassing stuff, especially if it's your kitchen. I mean, your bathroom, right? Like, that's where all the feminine, right? You get it. Like, this is an intimate interaction with this plumber. And I don't know, man, like, my kid is sleeping upstairs. My jewelry is out. Like, do I need to hide all that shit? Do I need to lock doors? Is this person going to steal from me? Is this person going to show up when they're supposed to? Because I have to take a day off work in order to be there to greet them. And then they don't show up like so many of these home services people do. Are they going to break my plumbing and charge me $1,000 to fix it? Or are they going to basically create work? Are they going to find the cheapest, easiest solution? Or are they going to find the most profitable one? Right? Like, all of those things are part of the engagement of hiring a plumber. So all the home services, all these dirt under the fingernails, all these non-AI-able professions have this relationship of trust. And then the question simply becomes, how do you create trust, and how do you differentiate from all the Me Too businesses that look the same? And there are lots of techniques. You can have 1,000 reviews on Trustpilot or whatever, plumbers go on, Google, or you can, have a good story that's true and authentic. And then you live those values, the values of your parents and the values of your experience.
So to tell that story, you had said something earlier that I made a note about. To tell that story, you want to tell your story truthfully, but my experience, both my own experience and with the hundreds or thousands of entrepreneurs I've worked with, I don't know very many that are passionate about what they do. Meaning, I'm coming up on $500 million in revenue across a dozen businesses. And I say all the time to young entrepreneurs, I've never done not one penny, not $1 that I have ever earned in revenue has come from something that I was passionate about. I'm passionate about my work and working and providing for my family and my kids having a better life and my wife being taken care of and taking care of my parents and the people that work for me. I'm passionate about those things. But I mean, I didn't grow up wanting to get into real estate. I didn't grow up wanting to be in transportation or development or any of the myriad of business, like gas stations, car washes, convenience stores. I'm not passionate about any of those. I want to go play pool, right? That's what I like to do. And if I could make a living doing that, I would. And so there's this narrative out there that I push back on, and I'd love to have pushback from you if you disagree with this, though, that these guys that are really good at these things that they do, that this is their passion. That's not been on average my experience. Their stories are fantastic, but if we were to say that, since I was 4 years old, I wanted to be a cop, and then so many go and be a cop, but there's not very many people that would go and do something that they truly love to do other than being a cop, right? Nobody grows up wanting to be a plumber.
I love this. We're going to have some like productive friction on this one. And so, but it's going to be great. I'm loving this because here's what I would say. I think if the E-Myth Revisited would call you an entrepreneur, not a technician.
Right.
A technician is in love with the work. An entrepreneur is in love with the building of businesses and the serving of others. Mm-hmm. And they're almost agnostic. Like their professional fascination is business building, not the specific thing the business does. Mm-hmm. But I believe in the statistics that most people who are entrepreneurs at the level we're talking about are actually technicians who have some deep connection to the work they actually do. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about, I think you represent roughly 15 to 20% of the entrepreneurial, but therefore there's a big chunk of you listening that are like, yeah, no, I totally feel what you're saying, Jerry. Like I'm interested in making money. And I'm interested in sort of finding market opportunities to make money. And I like what the money then does for me and my family and the freedom it generates and all that. And I like the act of building businesses, and I'm a little less worried about what the business itself is as long as it's profitable. I'm good. So let's just say that's true and that's you and that's 20% of your audience. What I would say is there's one thing that's dang clear to me, and I barely know you. I think we've known each other for 23 minutes now. You are clearly someone who likes to serve others.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
I can tell you wouldn't create a podcast or a peer group or frankly be an entrepreneur if you didn't like to serve others. It's like part of the definition of entrepreneurship is solving a problem that other people have.
I think my approach is even more simple and more pragmatic than that. And this is the way that I describe it. I'm a caveman, and my job is to get up every single morning, find the best cave I can, leave my wife and my children's back against the wall with an easy opening that they can see out with a fire. And I go out in the tall grass, right? And I go out among the trees where something might get a hold of me and somebody has to knock a pterodactyl over the head. And however I can wrangle that pterodactyl to the ground and then drag it back to the cave to feed my family, that is the basis of my entire existence. Having grown up as a poor kid, I had my first son at 28 years old. It turned my life around in a way that said, I have to go conquer they will not have the life that I'm going to have. And so my entire approach is based on what do I have to be to make sure my children went to a Chinese immersion school at 3 years old. From 3 years old to fifth grade, they speak fluent Mandarin Chinese, read, write, and speak it. Well, where does that's so far away from where I came from, right? Living up on the street, being homeless, that had to happen. Okay, what do I have to do to make that happen? And then they went to Catholic school and Christian school and, have this great education. And they all graduated from high school, which, half of the people I knew growing up didn't. I don't disagree that I enjoy improving people's lives. But again, at a more rudimentary level than that, that is entirely, if I could not do any of those things and still give my family all of the things that I want them to have, I would do that. But I always say, find something that you can sell to people profitably, right? And then take those profits and go do what you're passionate about. And that is my approach to this process. So I don't want to, or to my life. So I think it's even more, again, I just go caveman on it. And that's the way. And when I come home at the end of the day and something got a hold of me and my arm's messed up, I can't wait to get up the next morning as I watch my children and my wife eat and go out the next day and do it again. Now, my pterodactyls just happen to be gas stations, transportation companies, car washes, convenience stores, right? Developments, investments, woodworking business, whatever I thought I could make or lose money on in the pursuit of making sure that my family was fed to the best of my abilities, then that drove me. And that's all I cared about.
Yeah. It's really beautifully said. And Here's the way I think about it. Like, so in this example, you're taking a club to a pterodactyl and you're killing it, and that's what you're eating. I love that imagery, by the way. But
Yeah.
like, what if in order to feed your family, you had to kill another human being? Would you do that?
In a heartbeat.
Oh, you would? As a
I wouldn't
living?
think twice
Like,
about it.
you'd make, no, they're not in danger. It's just how you're making a living. Like, you would go and like,
I mean, if
you
you tell me it was the apocalypse and either my children
no,
starve or the
this
neighbor
isn't
goes
this
down.
isn't zombie apocalypse. You're just going out and making a
Okay.
living. You could either run a convenience store or kill people.
No, I wouldn't kill people.
Yeah, no,
obviously.
you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
Yeah,
So
right,
my point
right.
is, I'm just making an extreme point to say that what you go out and do when you're the caveman in this example is actually pro-social.
Sure, right.
Yeah, and I actually believe that literally every small business, with almost no exception, is pro-social. And the reason why is because the whole idea of product market fit, the whole idea of serving an unmet need, like the whole idea of someone giving you cash in exchange for a service or product, by definition is purposeful. By definition is meaningful, is community building. Like, you might not think a gas station matters that much, but actually it's the grease of the economy, right?
Sure.
Convenience store, like, that's where my daughter had her first kiss. You know, and the convenience store, if the Circle K down the street from me isn't safe, you know, you create a safe Circle K so my daughter can have her first kiss. That matters. That's part of a community building activity. And even though you're extremely caveman tribal, you know, and you're going to protect your family and don't ever cross me, you're also doing it in a pro-social way. Like, you could be Tony Soprano and you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is such a fantastic conversation. I'm really enjoying this because there's always, there's two sides to it. And so my interpretation of what you just said, though, is that the value of that business, the passion that I have for running successful businesses, dictate that business, that gas station, be what you just said it is to the society at large, right? Its contribution by helping the wheels turn, people come in and they feel safe that you're selling something, right, that they need and they want, they have a friendly interaction. That's going to bring them back more. I'm going to make more money, and then I take it home for the family.
And oh, by the way, what about all the families, not only the families you serve as your customers, but what all the families whose breadwinners work for you?
Right.
And how do you treat them? I got to guess, I mean, I don't know you, Jerry, at all, but I just get a vibe from you that you're good to your employees.
I have employees that have been working for me for 30 years. Yeah.
There's something about you that just exudes seriousness of purpose and trust. And I don't think you're the kind of guy, and I might be wrong, but who would fuck over your employees to make a dime.
There's yeah, that's interesting. There's no money in emotion, I always say. And I think when you're making emotional decisions in the short term, right, i.e. get ahead by doing this one small thing, in the long term, it never pays off. Again, what can you bring to your customers? The best service possible, be competitive, make money doing that, and then take that money home. And a workforce is a big part of that. A good management group is a big part of that. Resources are a good part of that. Internet's a big part of that. All of those pieces, communication is a big part of that. All of those pieces play into that. I think that when we talk about people being passionate about going and doing these jobs, we forget what really motivates so many of the Lunch-Pail crowd, which is the majority of the entrepreneurs in the world, which is they want to feed their families. They want to do better for themselves. And if we ask them to pretend like the thing that they do for a living is what they want to be doing, I think they'll say it out of peer pressure, but it's not been my experience that that's reality. So I guess my question comes back down to that authentic self, right? Tell your story, and you can be passionate about being the best plumber possible. But that plumber, I can almost promise you, I would bet money that the majority, so better than 51%, when they were young, didn't want to become plumbers. It is a means to an end, and in order to exact that means to an end to its greatest value, you become passionate about it.
Yeah, and I think passion is almost besides the point and even a little overrated because your passions shift and change. But I think let's go practical. You're a practical guy. I'll be really practical with you. Like, Let's just say, for argument's sake, and I don't believe this is true for you, and you will never convince me it's true for you, but I don't believe you're just in it for the money and to make money for your family. But let's just pretend you are.
Okay.
Because I can tell you're doing more than just that. You wouldn't be doing this podcast if you didn't have a service heart. But anyway, let's just set that aside. You are literally just in it for the money. Let's be practical for a second. That is super unmotivating for an employee to hear or a customer to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Mr. Customer. The only reason I'm doing this is because I want to extract profit from this transaction. And that is literally the only reason I'm doing this. I don't give a fuck about this product. I don't give a fuck about you. And the only reason I'm like charging a fair price is because you're not willing to pay more. The only reason that I treat my employees well is so that they don't fuck with you. So that's why I'm doing all of this. It's all really just to make sure I have enough money when I get home at the end of the day. That's a very unmotivating thing to hear as a customer, and it becomes deeply transactional in a scenario like that. So it's just from a practical perspective, ideally you would be able to say something authentic to that customer that you actually mean, but doesn't sound so damn transactional. So you could say something like, look, I know that in order for me to make money in this business, I need to service you. And I need to service you reliably, and I need to service you in a way that makes you want to come back. And so for that reason, I hire people who have the same values that I do, and we're dedicated to great service, and we want to charge you a fair price so that you tell your friends and you come back for more. And so like that's fine. Like I would do business with a gas station that does that, with a convenience store that does that. I'm not like looking for them to like be all kumbaya, Ben and Jerry's, save the world, Patagonia bullshit. Right. I just want someone who doesn't fucking rip me off.
Right.
And I want someone who isn't going to take my credit card number when I run it through the convenience store POS system and then sell it.
Right.
I don't want them to charge me $5 for a bottle of Coke.
I think that the disconnect where I am to what you're saying is that your baseline being that it's all about money, no one would do it if it wasn't at the baseline about money, right? And so I think the service that we provide on top of that is in the pursuit of that goal of making money at the heart of it. And I think many entrepreneurs, having worked with as many as I have, lose sight of that goal, particularly if they become successful. But I want to go back even a little bit further to the story part. When I was 17 years old, I was living with hookers and heroin addicts in a $25 a week flop house, right? I was holding down a full-time job. I have a 15-year-old education. I dropped out of high school at 15. I knew how to work, though. I paid taxes as an 11-year-old. I've been shot. I've been stabbed. I've been beaten with an inch in my life more times than I can count. I've never done a drug. I've never smoked. I've had a few drinks over the years, but not a whole lot. So I've been able to work, kept me going. So understanding at 11 years old, I paid taxes at a job I got on my own, and I've never not had a job since. I have 8 brothers and sisters, and I'm number 7. My parents were, doing everything they could to try to hold it together. I was born in 1969. So the point being is that when you come out of that, I knew how to work. And so at 28 years old, I started my first business. I did 4 million, 8 million, 12 million and 14 million in my first 4 years. I didn't know that was anything special, but it was driven by this desire to do better than where I came from. Not what I did better. Pure and simple was to make money. Now, how do I make money? Okay, can I do this job? Yes, I say to everybody at the end of my podcasts, opportunities are everywhere. You got to go get them, right? You just got to look for them. They're everywhere. And can you find something you can do well, and can you sell it at a profit? Well, certainly in order to do that well, you have to behave the way that you described. But again, coming from where I came from, it's all about how do I get ahead and make money, because I come from absolute abject poverty.
Yeah. All right, Jerry, let's do this. Okay. First of all, purpose and profit, right? Mm-hmm. There's no point to profit if there's no purpose, and there's no way to be purposeful if you're not profitable. So it's not either or, and one is not better than the other, but they need to coexist, or you'll have trouble sleeping at night. If you're just pure rape and pillage, most people would suffer. Second, you are a beautiful example of a man who has been animated by what I call dark energy. And I don't want this to be judgy. Dark energy is what
No,
builds.
please.
Dark energy is what builds the world. The thing that caused me to create my last company was a public humiliation and firing. That's dark energy. Man, dark energy is get up and go. Powerful. However, two things happen. Over time, in my experience, its power diminishes and you can burn out. It's not as sustainable as a light energy, love energy, abundance energy. And then number two is, as you get more successful, the dark energy starts to feel less true.
Hey, everybody, quick break. I want to tell you about something I'm doing for the first time. I'm putting together the first Kronos Group cohort. That's 10 business owners max. And understand, this is not a course. It's a peer-level work with other operators and direct access to me on a month-to-month basis. We're going to go deep on what actually moves the needle for businesses, like systems and sales and leadership and staying sane while you're building something real, fitness, health, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This group is for you. The people who get in on this first cohort get founder pricing, and that's the trade for going first. And it won't be open long, and it's not going to stay at this price for sure. If you've been listening to this show or me and thinking you need a room like this, you probably do. 10 spots, founder special. Check it out. The link's in the show notes.
Like, I don't get a sense at all that you're scraping now.
No, and you're 100%. The more mistakes, when I made 1,000 times more mistakes when I was doing very well than when I was not doing well.
And so what happens is the dark energy sometimes plays its course. So I started one of my businesses because I was publicly humiliated, fired. It was published in the newspaper, and I felt like I had something to prove. And I was like a bat out of hell and unstoppable for years. And then people would ask me, well, how come you started this business? And I would tell them the story of my public humiliation, my worst professional moment in my life. And Jerry, it just stopped feeling true. Like, this business I built was beautiful and I had these employees who I loved. And the work I did was changing people's lives. And I'm just like, this story just doesn't feel authentic and true anymore. And I would tell it and it wouldn't work anymore. Like it was a practical problem. When I started and I was in front of a room full of entrepreneurs and I told a story about being fired, everybody was like, yeah, I've been fired. Like, that was a very it's my most powerful story, my firing story. And it's very appealing, right? Like, it's not fun to talk to somebody who's got a gold-plated resume. It's fun to talk to somebody who got publicly humiliated. Everybody kind of appreciates and feels closeness to. And so I would even do it like a magic trick. I would say, okay, everybody, I just told you this horrible story. How many of you feel like you like and trust me more than when we started? And they all would raise their hands. So it like works. Yeah. However, at some point, it just stopped feeling true. It stopped, and when I couldn't like deliver it with authenticity, it stopped working. So I had a practical problem, which is I needed to come up with another story about this company that I loved, with people who I loved, that was doing amazing transformative work that I felt very fulfilled by. And so I switched the story to what I call a light energy story about my granddads. You'll appreciate this as a sportsman. So my grandfather, and my dad's from Spain. He's like an immigrant, came here with no college education, two nickels to rub together. But my granddad was a professional soccer coach in La Liga, very famous. And then he lost it all in a failed business venture. That's why my dad had no money. On my mother's side, my grandfather was a physics teacher at the Central High School in Philadelphia, the second oldest public high school. He was brilliant, but as a Jew, he was not able to be an engineer. And so the best he could do was be a physics teacher in high school. And he did a 35-year career in that. And then he ran a side hustle, which was a summer camp, which was massively successful and ended up funding like my inheritance. So you have a coach and a teacher and two entrepreneurs, one failed, one successful. And that's the story. Like, I literally, as I'm talking to you right now, Jerry, and I'm not kidding, like, I literally can feel their eyes and just huge pride. Yeah. Because what I'm doing is I'm building my business to help others build theirs. And that's a light energy story. And I never get tired of telling that story. And literally every time I tell it, I get goosebumps and I feel Grandpa Henry and Abuelo Satur like looking at me and proud of me.
Yes.
And I call it the shift from dark to light. And so, I wonder, as a guy who has had probably the most unimaginable hardship in your life, if there's a light story, like a light energy story, like a love-based story. It might be for your family, it might be.
Yeah, I think it's like a rocket. It's funny. I describe it this way and have over the years. It's like a rocket. To get that rocket off of the planet, it takes an intense amount of energy, an incredible amount of horsepower to get that rocket to escape the atmosphere. But then once you get it out there, it pretty much goes out on its own. You can do whatever you want with it with very little power whatsoever. And so to your point, the black energy kind of is like that rocket. It might take years and years and years and it just feeds you. But then at some point, it just, you're running businesses. To answer your question though, specifically, I think the birth of my children, I have 3 children. And as someone who wasn't going to have children, my light moment is just, now they're 29, 27, and 24. I have 2 in the military. I get to see my daughter every day. I just had dinner with her last night. My wife and I've been married for 29 years, which is impossible, right? To a 17-year-old with the hookers and all that. I have this life that is unimaginable. So my light, if you will, if I were to give it a definition, is that family. It's pure and it's simple. My children have been fantastic. I can't believe that I'm sitting here talking to you, Dan, 30 years hence with this great family and this wife of all of these years, unimaginable to a 17-year-old Jerry. So without a doubt, it goes from knocking pterodactyls over the head to just being a good example, I suppose.
Yes, and now let me make the move for you to show you how, and I'm going to do this and it's going to feel true and authentic to you. This is called the story of me to story of us move. It's the most powerful move in all of storytelling. So I am Jerry. I grew up in the most dire circumstances you can imagine. Everything bad that could have happened. And I am in a committed long-term relationship with a beautiful woman, and we have 3 kids. And I found so much meaning in being a father and giving to them everything I didn't have. So that's the story of me. And similar to that, I created the Kronos Group, a peer-to-peer mentoring network, and this podcast because you are all my entrepreneurial children, right? Like, I want to give to you what I've given to my children, which is a chance at a better life and the easier path. If you're going to take a rocket and you're going to go to Mars, it's going to take a lot of energy, but there are certain trajectories that'll get you there faster and won't blow you up. And that's what I'm here to do, right?
Yes.
So that's called the story of me to story to us shift. And so you can absolutely be the fiercest dad imaginable, and you can talk about that as your larger purpose. You can talk about that as your motivation, your desire to give your children what you did not have, what you had to scrape and earn and cut through, but then also is literally the exact same thing you're doing in your businesses. Right now, at least the Kronos Group and the podcast is creating for your entrepreneurial children, for the young men listening to this right now, a vision of an older, wiser, been through the ringer mentor to help give them a chance at an easier path.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. In fact, that was my experience. That was my life because I joined a group at 30 years old. Like I said, that we're still together to this day. We get together one time a year. Everybody, when I joined, was in their 40s and 50s. Now they're in their 70s and 80s, and I'm 57 years old. Point being, I learned a ton from those guys. So now it's almost like I want to pass it on. But to your point, even more so, I go and talk to the youths, that are in the JDH facilities, right? I go talk to the groups of the guys who live in the inner city because I want them to see what's possible so that they understand, because I know they're surrounded with, you can't do it and it's everybody else's fault. And I try to bring some perspective to it. So that is what I have done throughout my career now allows me to go and provide that information. And so I don't disagree with you at all on that.
And, I'm not going to do it with you now just for time reasons, but you just gave me the key to unlocking this with you, which is the mentors.
Right.
Yeah. And you're modeling the mentorship that you received in the work you're doing. In other words, there were people who kind of got you out of the muck and helped you on this journey. And there probably are different ones along the way. And now you're kind of paying it. And they probably didn't ask of anything from you, except that
Right.
you honor your commitments to them, that
Yeah.
you just do what you say you're going to do, and they are not asking for anything from you. And then that's more or less what you're now inviting your audience to do, is to like hold themselves to account and be the mentor to them that these people were to you. And so like if I were working with you, I would get that written down. Who are they? What are their names? What was the model? And then it would just become ideally just a part of your story that you told people frequently. That's all I do is like, it's like so clear to me that you are a deeply purposeful person. And yes, you are taking care of your family, and you're taking care of more than just your family. Like you're a part of this community of 30 million business owners, and you're one of the pillars. And that's just not accidental. Like there are many people who would have had the exact same arc of your life, but would not be doing a podcast, would not have a peer-to-peer group, would not be giving back.
Right.
And it's just, there's very specific people in your life and parts of your personality that make that feel kind of inevitable. And maybe it's like so inevitable that you don't even notice it. But my job is to notice it and then point it out to you. It's there. I'm not making anything up, am I?
No.
No, it's there. It's like
fair.
very evident. It's like, but you know, what I have is a gift to see it. And that gift is a combination of years of training at the highest levels of journalism. I've been trained in interrogation techniques by the people who did Abu Ghraib. Like I know a lot about how to extract information, see patterns, connect dots. And I did it at the highest levels of journalism for 20 years. And now I apply those skills to small businesses to help connect the dots, to help them sometimes for the first time see why they're doing what they're doing and the bigger, larger purpose that they're fulfilling, sometimes without even realizing it.
Yeah, so in the little time we have left, let's kind of, I'm not sure this is where either one of us.
This is perfect, man. I am loving this.
But let's, to that end, let's talk about specifically to again, that plumber. He's going to grow his business. We kind of started the podcast talking about this, but what's something relative to their story that they can take away from the podcast? I always talk about, again, the Kronos Group is it's a group. It's not a mastermind. It's not where you're getting stuff at 20,000 foot. You go back and you're all incentivized and woo-woo and you go back to your business. It's all about learning something that I can go back and work on today, right? It's on the ground rather than 15,000 foot. So in that context, from a storytelling perspective to help build the brand and help build that business, what's something that a plumber can use today that can take away from you, Dan, that they could put to work this week?
Yes, love that. What's something you can do by Friday? So I have to give you kind of a little bit of a framework answer, and then I'll talk to you about what you can do immediately. There are two types of stories. There's the story of where you came from. Sometimes you could call your origin story. And also in there, you'll find your values and your purpose in the past, right? If you mine your past, it's there. But then there's the future story. Like, what are you building? And so what I do is I help you get really clear on excavating your past and where you came from and the values and the purpose behind it, but also the future story of what you're building towards. And then from there, I create what I call like a roadmap of story to strategy. And so if you're a plumber and you find yourself in a situation like a lot of plumbers where you don't have quite enough customers and you're not charging as much as you need to be, my advice to you is figure out like, who are you honoring in the work you're doing? Like, who taught you to care about servicing others, and why plumbing as your path to service? And then if you can find, and a lot of times it's hard to hold up a mirror and look at it yourself, but like, if you could have like a good listener sit down with you and just ask you repeatedly, why is that important? Why does that matter? Why is that important? Why does that matter? Until you get to what sometimes seems like a kind of highfalutin answer, but is actually true. Like, which is that you are creating the conditions for people to live comfortably in their homes, raise their family there, and do so with a clear conscience. That's a big fucking deal. That's a big deal, man. And so that's what you're doing as this plumber. And so then, well, why do you want to be that guy for people? and you're like, maybe there was a rabbi or a priest or an uncle or a father or a mother who influenced you, or maybe you just have always been that guy who helped others. You just tell that story authentically. Like when someone's looking to hire you, you could be like, look, listen, couple things. One, I'm sure you've been fucked by a plumber. We all have. I just want you to know that the reason that I'm a plumber is because my dad was a handyman. This is like work that I believe in. This is work that I hope my kids do. This is my profession. And the one thing I can't promise that I'll be able to fix your water, but I won't fuck you over in the process.
And you lead with that?
I think so. I think you go right there, man, or very early on. That's the sales call. That's why I don't think it's marketing. You put that on a website and it feels inauthentic. You put that, I mean, no, it doesn't feel inauthentic. If you're like, my dad was a handyman and I'm now a plumber and he taught me the first thing you do is you service the client in an honorable way. He taught me the values of long-term relationships. You know, some of his clients worked with him for more than 30 years. He taught me that you don't grab at money, the easy money. The way to make money is by building bonds of trust. I started this business because I'm honoring him and his memory. Like if you put that on your website and then you come and you show up and I don't know, man, you have like a picture of your dad on your truck or he's in your wallet or, you know, I don't know, maybe the company is called, you know, Joe's Son, right? So you like build it into the name, Joe's Son's Plumbing. And then so Joe is the dude. Yeah. The sooner you can do it. And oh, by the way, now you're bigger. Right. And now you have more clients than you know what to do with because you're telling your story and you need to hire someone. And when you're sitting there in that final interview, right, you know they know how to plumb, but are they going to share the values that your dad taught you? That's what the final interview is about. You know, this is what my dad taught me. Can you talk about a time in your life where you lived that value? And I just want you to know, the only way you'll ever get in trouble with me is if you fuck over a client to make a buck. I will never approve of that. So if there's a deal, just call me. We'll talk through it, but we have to treat these people like they're our mothers.
I think a 57-year-old Jerry, with all of my experience, understands that and likes that. I think a 32-year-old Jerry would have looked at that and go, Dan's smoking something. Because while I have, you know, again, mine would be my family and I would never screw you over because, you know, again, I just want to make sure my family's taken care of. I couldn't imagine a world where I would share that. So I got to think about this more in the long term, but I think I like what you're saying. I think that makes sense to me. I don't think a 35-year-old Jerry would have ever talked like that.
Yeah. Well, you're a pretty fierce dude and you've gone through hell and back. And what I'm saying is definitely not for everybody. Here's the analogy. So I live in Colorado. I live near something called Long's Peak. Long's Peak is the deadliest 14,000 foot mountain in Colorado. And the reason it's really deadly is because it is a face called the Diamond Face that is an almost sheer cliff and people fall off it all the time. In part because these really nasty afternoon storms roll through and knock them off, like flick them off. And I think of the way you built your businesses a little bit is like you scaled the Diamond Face. Mm-hmm. And there's this other path, it's called the Keyhole path, and it goes around the other three sides of the mountain. Mm. And, you know, there's a little bit of scrambling on rocks, but you always are on solid footing. And when that storm inevitably rolls through, you just like tamp and you kind of huddle, or worse comes to worse, you just go down the mountain. And my point is that telling your story isn't the only way, and they both end up at the same place, right? You summit either way, but my idea is just telling your authentic story is the Keyhole pass, and you've shown that you can climb the Diamond Face and get to the top as well.
I got to tell you this story real quick. I'm sitting in my group about 20 years ago. I'm fretting over that my children, how are they going to be tough enough to do this? You know, I had this life and I'm trying to, I mean, I was, you know, again, my kids are fantastic, but I'm trying to kind of straddle that line between being tough enough on them, but we have all of these things. And so, you know, not spoiling them too much. And my group all looked at me. There's 9 men staring at me and they're like, you're the only one here. There's one other guy that's been in a fight. What are you talking about? You don't have to be in a fight. You don't have to get stabbed or beaten or all these other things to find success. We all went to college or we all started businesses and just went right to it. But to your point, There are ways of getting to places. Each one of us, you don't have to do the exact same way both times. For God's sake, take the back roads, like you said, up the back and make life much easier on you. Before we go, AI and storytelling.
But I just want to say, my
please.
point is that your 35-year-old self, reasons that were just chose to go up the diamond face, and because you're a beast, got to the top.
Yeah.
God bless you. But now that you're 57, I'm just pointing out there was the Keyhole pass that you could have taken.
100%.
And maybe as a 35-year-old, like, fuck the Keyhole pass, I'm going up the side of the mountain.
I'm going the short way.
Yeah, exactly. The short way.
Right.
So anyway, that's it. I have no judgment, but the utmost respect for the 35-year-old version of you. But I choose the Keyhole path, man. I'm just like, I'm not a hard ass gonna have to climb a solid face of rock. I would definitely fall and die. So it's like the only real path for me, and it's the path that I want to advocate for others.
And there's the value in a mentor is, as a 57-year-old, I can say, don't do it my way. Go around back and go that direction.
Exactly. Once you got to the top and you look down and you realize there is this other path you could have taken. Yeah.
That's right. Real quick, though, I want to get your take on AI. Right? Because it just seems to be everywhere, and you can, it obviously is, and you can see it in people's writing, and it can be I use AI every day. I use them all the different ones in a myriad of different ways, but the writing in particular, is it possible to use AI in the world today and tell an authentic story like as if you wrote it?
I love that question. Resoundingly yes, but you have to feed it a lot of information about you. And then you have to teach it how you write in order to do that. So this is very, like, I would be a maniac not to use AI to build my business, which is a storytelling business. And so I'll just share with you my methodology. It's like no secret. Like, I interview you, using my investigative journalism skills. And I'm a better interviewer than almost anybody. So I will be able to extract stuff from you that most wouldn't. So part of what you're paying for is that. And then I will identify your voice, tone, and style based either on your other writings or just the way you talk. Like, you're a very kind of authentic, no bullshit guy. So any story about you needs to be written in an authentic, no bullshit way. Right? So you get the voice, tone, and style, and you can just take the transcript and invite the AI to tell you what is Jerry's voice, tone, and style based on this transcript. And then the key part is all the stuff that's in your head that's never been written down. AI can't possibly know that, so you just need to get that written down. And usually the interview is sufficient, plus you'll send me other materials that you've written. And then with that, if you do that, you can write extremely authentic human prose, but with the help of an AI copywriter. And I have a kind of funny story. This is a bit of a sad story I used to hire copywriters. So I would, I would interview you, and there would be a third person on the call, and that would be my copywriter. And then I would give her the transcript, plus she would be taking notes, and then she would write up your story. And then I started to, a year or 2 years ago, throw on the transcription. And then I would just experiment. I would be paying her $500, and then I would just have AI write it. And the AI was way better. And I remember one time, this was the last time I hired her. I hope she doesn't ever listen to this. She just didn't do a good job on a piece. So I threw in the transcript, told the AI what to do, got a raw output, and just sent it to her. And I said, sort of like this. And she's like, oh my God, Dan, you're such a great writer. It's so great. And I'm like, anyway, I never hired a copywriter again after that. But there is a real art to prompting so that it doesn't sound robotic. I will say, if you really want to have a backfire in your relationship, write something that reads like AI slop.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a user error. That's not a problem with the technology.
So it's not a magic fix. You got to work with it a lot and let it get to know you and what you're doing, so that it can write and sound and talk like you do with your experience.
And this is called, the phrase of the day is called context engineering. Mm-hmm. Context engineering is giving it all the context it would need to know about you, your voice, your history, and then let it run with that. And it does a beautiful job. And the more guidance you can give it around emphasize this, de-emphasize that, put a little bit more of this into it, a little bit less of that. That doesn't sound like me. Like, the more you massage, the better a job it does.
I love it. All right, Dan. What a fantastic conversation. An hour is not long enough for these for so many of these conversations, but I got to cut it off at an hour. Let's give you an opportunity here, though. Tell the folks again, mostly entrepreneurs, mostly men, 20s and 30s year olds. So how can you help them get their businesses growing?
Yeah, I mean, I have a message to you men, which is just remember that diamond face keyhole pass. Like telling your story is the easier path to the same destination. It's up to you if you're willing, able to be authentic, but you're doing something meaningful and purposeful. And the better you get at talking about it, the easier the path will be for you. If you're interested in working with me on how to do that, you can go to my website, which is ybys.com, your business, your story. And you'll see on there an easy way to book a call with me, and we can go from there.
Your
and
business,
you can also,
your story. YBYS. Dan, I appreciate you coming on. That was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you. Be well, Jerry. You're amazing.